Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm in Gwangju 5.18 기념공원, which is one of the memorial park in Gwangju. This is the place that honors one of the most powerful moments in Koreans' fight for democracy. I currently live in Gwangju, and one unique thing about this city is its deep connection to democracy movements that happened here. So this park was built to remember the spirit of that time. This is the May 18th Memorial Park in Gwangju, a place built to remember the people who stood up for democracy in 1980. As you walk deeper into the park, memorial statues and panels appear. Photos and sculptures preserve the history of those who stood up against military rule. These monuments commemorate the citizens who resisted martial law and demanded democracy. The park extends over a large area with paths leading to the memorial shrine underground. This space was created to remember the individuals who lost their lives during the uprising. Inside, a statue of a mother holding her child represents the sorrow of those left behind. The surrounding walls display the names of the victims. Outside, the central monument rises toward the sky. It symbolizes the spirit of sacrifice and the pursuit of democracy. Near the end of the path, I found a traditional pavilion. Inside, the roof is painted with patterns that feel both historic and comforting, reminding us that this is not just a place of mourning, but of memory and culture. And you might have seen this in the news. Korea, we are currently facing another presidential impeachment, so it's kind of a sensitive time politically. So today, rather than focusing on one side or opinions, I just want to talk about something deeper. The strong democratic spirit of Korean people. And while we are at it, let's some useful Korean expressions through this. 먼저 이 이야기를 시작하기 전에 어떠한 정치적인 견해도 담지 않은 중립적인 시각에서 말씀드린다는 점을 먼저 알려드립니다. 지금 한국은 대통령 탄핵이라는 큰 사건을 겪으면서 조금 예민해져 있는 상태입니다. 하지만 저는 오늘 제 개인적인 의견은 배제하고 객관적인 한국인의 민주주의 정신에 대해서만 이야기해보려고 합니다. 사실 제가 투표권을 가진 이후로 이번에 윤석열 대통령 탄핵까지가 벌써 두 번째 탄핵이에요. 아마 외국분들은 이렇게 생각을 하실 수도 있을 것 같아요. 왜 한국인들은 우리가 투표를 해놓고 왜 탄핵을 하나? 라고. 이게 쉽게 대답하기는 어려운 질문이긴 하지만 여기서 한 가지 확실한 거는 있습니다. 탄핵이라는 제도가 실제로 작동하고 있다는 점인데요. 저는 이 자체가 우리 국민이 권력을 감시하고 잘못된 방향으로 가지 않도록 하는 거라고 생각을 해요. 정치인들 뿐만 아니라 국민들도 필요하면 거리에 직접 나와서 목소리를 내고 정당한 절차 안에서의 변화를 요구할 수가 있습니다. 물론 이 정치라는 게 단순하지는 않습니다. 이 탄핵이라는 게 결정되기까지 여러 이해관계나 아니면 제가 모르는 정치적인 어떤 흐름이 있을 수가 있을 거예요. 그리고 그 과정에서 우리 국민들도 서로 의견이 다를 수가 있어요. 아주 다양한 의견이 생길 텐데 여기서 중요한 점은 서로의 의견을 존중해야 된다고 생각을 합니다. 결국 이 나라의 국민이 주인이다 라는 그 원칙은 변하지 않으니까요. 그리고 이런 움직임이야말로 한국 사회가 가지고 있는 강한 민주주의 정신이 아닐까라고 생각을 해봅니다. Rain goes up and down, so now it stopped. Alright, so let's break down today's three expressions from the story. The first one is 민주주의 정신. 민주주의 is democracy and 정신 is the spirit. So 민주주의 정신 is the spirit of democracy. So in the story, I mentioned how even though Koreans has had multiple impeachments, these are not the signs of instability, but actually it's signs of a strong democratic spirit. This phrase, 민주주의 정신, refers to the mindset and values that support the democracy. So these are things like citizen participation, freedom of speech, and holding powerful responsibility. In the Korean context, this spirit was built over decades of real struggle. From students' protests in the 1980s to peaceful candlelight rallies in more recent years. It's about people believing we have right and responsibility to shape our country. So when I said I believe this shows the strong democratic spirit of Korean society, I wasn't just talking about system. I was talking about people, how aware and active they are when it comes to justice and fairness. I ordered a whole fried chicken with my friends. And as always, war began. Everyone wanted the drumsticks. But then I stood up and said, okay, let's do it fair. Rock, paper, scissors. That's the spirit of democracy. 민주주의 정신. And I lost. But at least democracy won. 민주주의 정신. 민주주의 정신. 민주주의 정신. Our second expression, 목소리를 내다. So 목소리 is the voice and 내다 is to speak up, to raise. So 목소리를 내다 means to raise one's voice or to speak up. There was a line in the story that goes like 필요할 땐 시민들도 거리에 나와서 목소리를 냈다. 필요할 땐 when necessary 시민들 as citizens 나와서 comes out and 목소리를 냈다. So when necessary, citizens also comes out to the streets and raise their voice. This is what 목소리를 내다 situation. Literally, it means to put out your voice, but it's used when someone speak up for their belief or stand against something unfair. You can use it in many situations, from political protest to just standing up for yourself in a conversation. Imagine a student speaking up unfair treatment at school, or a customer complaining about something clearly wrong. This person is 목소리를 내는 중. They are speaking up. They are not staying silent. It's a really empowering phrase, and in Korean culture especially, in the context of democracy, this symbolizes action and courage. In our team meeting, our manager asked, "Any ideas for next quarter?" It was silent. But suddenly, quiet Minho said, actually, I think our marketing is boring." Everyone turned their heads like, what? He finally raised his voice, 목소리를 내다, and got promoted 2 weeks later. Speak up, people. 목소리를 내다. 목소리를 내다. 목소리를 내다. Our third expression, 의견을 존중하다. 의견 in English is opinion, and 존중하다 is to respect. So 의견을 존중하다 means to respect one's opinion. We talked about how not everyone agrees on political matters, and that's okay. Actually, it's more than okay, but it's expected. But what matters is how we respond to these differences. The phrase 의견을 존중하다 means to respect someone's opinion even if you don't agree with it. So it's about listening without just immediately dismissing or attacking. In the story, I said, because we have different opinions, it's important to respect others' opinion. Because in times of political tension like this, it's easy to argue. But the real democracy isn't about arguing or fighting. It's about dialogue and mutual respect. Think of it like a group project where everyone has different ideas. You may not like someone's ideas or opinion, but if you respect their ideas and opinion, you're keeping the team. So it's important to 의견을 존중하는 것. Me and my friend were talking about our favorite group, BTS. I said, obviously J-Hope is the most talented. She gasped. You did not just say that. RM literally carries the whole group. We got serious. We even compared fan cams. But in the end, we agreed to disagree. 의견을 존중하다. And went back to screaming together at the chorus. Besties with different bias. 의견을 존중하다. 의견을 존중하다. 의견을 존중하다. Today, it looks like a park, but we visited is 5.18 Memorial Park. We talked about a little deeper than usual, the spirit of democracy. Quick recap for today's expressions. The first one, 민주주의 정신, the spirit of democracy. Second, 목소리를 내다, to raise one's voice, to speak up. And third, 의견을 존중하다, to respect others' opinion. So now, politicals aside, life itself gave us so many moments where we need these expressions. Maybe you see something unfair at school or work, or you're in a discussion where your voice matters. In those situations, I hope you remember to 목소리를 내세요, to speak up with confidence, because your voice matters, and real change often starts with just one voice. So thanks for watching my video, and if today's video made you think a little differently, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I always love to listen your story too. So until next time, 안녕!